I don't think we're nearly as polarized as the media would make us believe we are. Anytime I sit down to talk to or negotiate with someone or teach negotiation, one of the first things that I always do is say, let's focus on what we agree on first. It sells if you have conflict. It sells if you have people making sparks. It sells if you have people throwing out sound bites that are easily repeatable. It doesn't sell so much if you conduct yourself like these two candidates did tonight. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate this. I can tell you that the conversation we're going to have here is going to be watched a lot. And I know at least two of the candidates that are going to be watching, and they're interested in what you have to say. This is the only vice presidential debate there's going to be. And I want to welcome everyone at home to our post-vice presidential debate town hall meeting here at Merit TV. Now, tonight's town hall is being brought to you by Easy Access, a family-owned, American-made company creating access to life beyond barriers with their innovative ramps, stairs, and platforms. And we're really proud to be partnering with Easy Access in their mission to provide accessibility solutions for every aspect of life at home, work, and play. And I love that it's all American-made. Tonight, we have an audience of 36, mostly undecided voters, or at least they were when they started, maybe not anymore, who with just 34 days until the presidential election, I think some of y'all are still looking for answers, right? You're still looking to see where some of these people stand on things that matter to you. Now, my first question is, how was this debate tonight? I'll ask for a show of hands. Did tonight's debate between Republican vice presidential nominee Senator J.D. Vance and Democratic nominee Governor Tim Walz sway the needle for you? Is there anybody here that heard anything tonight that you thought, that's what I've been waiting to hear? I've been waiting for somebody to clear this up for me, and all of a sudden, I get it. I now know what differentiates these two sides. Anybody hear anything that really swayed you tonight? If you did, raise your hand. If you didn't, raise your hand. If you would have rather been watching a rerun of the Three Stooges, I mean, was this a waste of your time? What did you get out of this? Just raise your hand and tell me what you got out of this, if anything. Stand up, say your first name.
Yeah, I'm Patrick. It was nice. They were nice to each other. They were civil, and I ended up liking Vance a little bit more than I had before. It was a really pleasant debate, and it was good to hear differing opinions that seemed to be civil to each other.
Yeah, how many of you agree that this was more civil than what you've been hearing? Okay, everybody agrees with that. All right, did you find that appealing? Did you like that? If you did, raise your hand. If you thought, nah, they're just milquetoast worms, raise your hand. Okay, you didn't like that, okay. All right, by the way, behavior analyst Scott Rouse from Behavior Panel is here to share what he saw while watching these candidates tonight. Scott, thank you for being here. We kind of got you over in the dark right now, but we'll get to you. Now, listen, what did you want to hear tonight that you didn't hear? What is it that, if you're undecided, there's something that is in your head, something that you're waiting to get clarity on that you haven't yet? What did you want to hear that you didn't hear tonight? Stand up and say your first name.
My name is Tawana. I heard a lot of decent things. Student loans is one of the most crushing, debilitating debt that is killing America. And I heard no candidate talk about that. That's pressing on my mind. That's pressing on my family. that's pressing on housing and a lot of important issues and things in my household. And yeah, I didn't hear anything about that. So that's really on my mind.
Everything you just said, and you're right, nobody talked about student loans or how that's going to be handled, but everything you just said seemed to have a common thread of affordability. And they did talk about that some. How important is affordability to everyone here? If that's in your top 2 or 3, raise your hand. Okay, affordability is important. And stay with me for just a second. Did you hear anything about affordability that made you feel like one side or the other is more interested in meeting you where you are in dealing with your challenges than the other?
Yes and no. So I heard a lot about like blaming like migrants and all of that. What is the solution? I live in close to downtown Dallas. Homelessness is absolutely crazy. And what are the solutions? I mean, housing that, like, there's empty buildings. They keep building luxury apartments, luxury places. Where are you putting these homeless people? Yes, I'm not homeless. These people here are not homeless, but it's not just, oh, that's not my problem. It's an American problem. It's a worldwide problem. What are we doing? And I don't know if I've heard enough from either side about that. Healthcare as well too. It's pressing.
All right. Is your life better or worse off than it was 4 years ago?
4 years ago,
Financially?
no. It's
You better or worse?
It's kind of, you know what?
No, that's all right.
Other circumstances in life, life circumstances, but it could be better.
Okay. Let me ask the group, how many of you, and think back, because we're here in 24, so I know 2020 was a different time because we were like, and the COVID and all that sort of thing. But think about cost and how you were doing in terms of paying childcare and getting your bills paid and buying gas and doing all the things that you did in 2020 versus where you are now in 2024. Just overall affordability life-wise, are you better off now or were you better off then? If you were better off 4 years ago in terms of having a little money left over at the end of the month versus now, raise your hand. Raise it real high so the camera can get it. Looks at least about half of you. All right, if you're better off now than you were 4 years ago, raise your hand. Okay, so inflation helps some of you. Tell me, what's your, will you stand up and tell me your name? Yeah, you're getting ambushed.
Yeah, that's okay. My name's Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer, thank you. Why are things better than they were 4 years ago?
Well, I think it's just our circumstances. I don't know that it necessarily had anything to do. We're obviously paying more for eggs and bacon and those kinds of things, right? But I just think our circumstances are better than they were 4 years ago, so.
Okay, and you think that has to do with you, not with the government?
I think that has to do with us, yes.
Okay. I asked you that for a reason, because I want to know what the rest of you think about what Jennifer's saying here. How much do you think it matters in terms of the way your life goes day to day, week to week, whether it's Trump or Harris as president? And I'm going to ask you this in an answerable way in a minute, but my point is, do you think how your life goes is more up to you and what you do and your circumstances and the job you may get or lose or whatever? Or do you think it's more determined by who's president and what the government is doing at the time? If it's more up to you and what you do, raise your hand. Raise it real high so the camera can get it. Okay, if you say, no, if the government cripples us, if they do things that make it hard, then it doesn't help us, raise your hand. Okay, raise it real high so the camera can see it. Okay. All right, most of you said it's self-determination. It's up to what you do. What'd you want to say? You're doing this. That means call on me so I can stand up and say something.
Well, it's kind of up to me for my destiny or my kids' destiny, so forth. But I keep a log of my gas mileage and how much I pay for a tank of gas. If 4 years ago it was $2.49 for premium, and now I'm paying almost $5 for premium, that matters. That's how many gallons over a year am I paying more of. And when my 3 kids, my husband and I would go to dinner, and it would be $80 for us to go to a nicer restaurant, and now it's $80 for just my husband and I to go to a restaurant. That matters.
Yeah.
And that builds over time. We can be ambitious all we want, but that's still affecting our bottom line.
Sure. Yeah, you can work harder, but if everything's going up,
Right.
it doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Who else has a comment or a feeling about the affordability issues? Yes, ma'am. Raise your hand. Stand up. Say your first name.
I'm also a Jennifer. So,
All right.
I think government does play a role in a bigger way, but I think, and this isn't what we're voting on right now, primarily, but local and state government, I think, have hurt me more than the president.
How so?
Property taxes, insurance rates for my property, insurance rates for my car, raising 2 kids and trying to get through the school district system and all the fees I'm having to pay just for them to get to do basic activities. All that is kind of controlled more by my state than by my president. So,
Okay. So it does have to do with government, but it's more local.
yeah.
How many of you feel that way? How many of you feel like the federal part and everything they do in an overarching way is one thing, but what they're doing with like local sales tax, state tax, all that is where you really get hit? Raise your hand. Raise it real high so we can see it. Okay. And let me get up on my soapbox for a minute and say that's why you need to pay attention down ticket. Not just click the box up top, Republican, Democrat, or just the first few that are up there that you have name recognition on because they spend a lot of money. Those folks that are at the local and state level that are passing property tax, school tax, franchise tax, state income tax, those can really hit you. Robert and I moved here a few years ago from California, where they have like 13.68% state income tax. Now think about adding that on to your tax bill at the end of each year. But it used to be a beautiful state, so well, now not so much, because they are having trouble managing it, which is probably why you're seeing Kamala Harris instead of the current governor, Newsom. I think he was headed for that position until he ran California off into the ocean. Just my opinion, I'm just saying. Did you hear anything tonight that really disturbed you from either candidate? Something you heard from them where you said, no, I wouldn't have said that, or I wouldn't have talked about it. Yes, sir. Stand up, say your first name.
I'm Dave. And the thing that concerned me the most was when they were talking about guns, and Walz just ended by saying, sometimes it's just the guns. I mean, my jaw hit the floor on that because JD was trying to explain to us how mental health plays an issue, other things plays an issue. He wasn't pinpointing it, and Walz said, well, sometimes it's just the guns, and that's scary to put that in the hands of the government.
Yeah, I thought about that when he said it because, you make these New Year's resolutions, and I remember one time I got some jogging shoes and I put them on the front porch and the damn things just wouldn't jog. And I thought, sometimes it's just the jogging shoes, it's up to them. All right, we're going to have to take a break. Next, we're going to find out what top behavior and body language expert Scott Rouse says he saw while analyzing each of the candidates in tonight's debate. You're going to want to take some notes on this because you can probably use it in your own life. But first, a word from Easy Access, our proud partner in tonight's town hall. For over 40 years, Easy Access has proudly been a family-owned and operated American-made company dedicated to providing access to life beyond barriers. Their mission is clear: to offer comprehensive accessibility solutions for home, work, and play. What began with residential accessibility has expanded to include commercial, industrial, and recreational markets, making Easy Access a trusted name across industries. As the largest manufacturer of ramps for Veterans Administration, They've installed over 250,000 ramps for veterans nationwide during their 22-year partnership, longer than any other manufacturer. At Easy Access, they're driven by innovation. Whether it's expanding into pet accessibility or recreational markets, they focus on quality, durability, and ease of use in every product. And while they continuously develop new and custom solutions to meet evolving needs, they never lose sight of their roots, creating jobs, supporting American manufacturing, and improving lives. They are passionate about removing barriers and enhancing independence for all individuals. Easy Access, commitment to sustainability ensures that their products are reusable, adaptable, and environmentally responsible, so they can continue to help people access the world around them. Well, joining us now is top behavior analyst Scott Rouse from the Behavior Panel. Now, Scott, you watched tonight's debate really closely. What was your general feeling about the two candidates in terms of their preparedness, their composure, and how well you think they connected with the viewer?
We saw opposites, polar opposites. They were both prepared, but one is not as good at being a debater as the other. Not as relaxed.
Okay, hold on. Who do you think he's talking about? He says one of them is not as a relaxed debater as the other. So you think one is more skilled at debating?
Oh, very much so.
And how many of you think that's J.D. Vance? How many of you think, no, he's talking about Walz? Just you? All right, see, what am I going to do with you? All right, so who was the more experienced and relaxed debater?
J.D. Vance. Very smooth movements. His illustrators, when we illustrate, that's how your brain emphasizes specific words and phrases, like I did just then, specific words and phrases. And when he makes his illustrators, they're right on the money, right on time. And when they go away slowly. They're very smooth. Whereas you look at Walz, his are very fast and very, very quick, and his arms stay close to his torso.
What's that mean to you?
That, to me, when I'm looking at a behavior that is trying to decide if somebody's if they're open or confident, and you see this, that's not good.
Okay, because they're tucking in for protection, right?
Yes, they're tucking in for protection.
They're in here. And Vance has given a lot more interviews than Walz and Harris combined, so maybe he's gotten a little more comfortable under fire.
Sure looks it.
Do you think it helped him get his message across?
Very much so, especially in a couple of spots we'll talk about.
Okay, you want to show us what they are?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. You want to go over to the screen here?
Yeah, let's take a look.
All right, show us what you got. This is Vance, where you say he does come across as confident here.
Yes.
Does that mean he's more believing what he's saying?
Oh, yes. This is someone who is a true believer, who believes in what he's saying, being completely honest with what he's saying, nothing to hide at all.
Right.
So,
and what are we looking for?
So what we're going to look for, we'll look for the head tilt as this section right in here of his head. We'll look at that and we'll say, okay, well, what's happening? As he's talking, it looks like he's listening. When we listen, our head tilts a little bit and that right ear comes forward a little bit. When he's looking at Walz, what we're seeing here, this begins panic almost because he doesn't know what to say. See how he backs up there and he's thinking? This is called the grief muscle. Right in that area there, that's a horseshoe style. When your forehead comes together in an upside down horseshoe, that's the grief muscle. He's not sure. Right there it is, right there. Perfect. So
when you say grief muscle, what are you saying that he's saying to himself right now?
He's worried. He's a little panicked, and he doesn't know what's going to happen next. He's got the idea of what he wants to say, but he doesn't know exactly what he's going to say. Okay. He has the concept. All right. He's doesn't have it down yet.
Okay.
So, and his blink rate, because you're always fascinated with blink rate. Let's check out Vance's blink rate compared to Walz's blink rate.
All right, is this in clip 2?
Oh, sure.
Right, blink rate, is this where you're looking now?
Yes. This is up for him, because as he's thinking, your eyes will blink. But as your stress goes up, people blink anywhere from 15, 20 times a minute. And here we're seeing that's about right for here. But that's about right for his blink rate. And over here, he's not even talking, and we'll see his blink rate skyrocket in just a couple of seconds there. So keep an eye on that. But at the same time, here are the illustrators I've been telling you about. He doesn't do anything unique, and these are all classics that a lot of people do. So he hasn't been out rehearsing which ones to use. He uses the classics, this one, the karate chop, and then the framing stuff. So everything there is fine, and everything lands on the money. When the words he's emphasizing, those hit on those words, and that's really important.
Okay, now we want to see the blink rate here. Can we roll this back just a little bit, or is it still to come on this?
Okay.
All right, here we go. All right, so when you see a high blink rate, it means somebody's under a lot of stress.
Right, a lot of stress. Unless you see them, unless they're fearful, where we see some of that as well. His eyes are wide, and notice how slow his eyes blink right there, because we call that shutter speed. You're hearing something or seeing something that you don't agree with or don't want to hear or see. We call it eye blocking as well. But that's what we're seeing when his eyes blink really, really slowly. So this is fear here. It must be in the clip I'm talking about where his speed up.
Yeah, well, no, I see the fear that you're talking about here.
Yeah, grief muscle, the whole.
Yeah, you know, people think when they're lying, they won't look at you in the eye. Sometimes they just stare at you like a dead trout. So they're afraid to look away. Let's talk about the next one.
All righty.
All right, this is the third one. And this is a clip where Governor Walz and Scott says he's being deceptive.
Yes, at the end, we're going to see as he says this phrase, he says, people are getting what they need. That's the last thing he says. And when he does that, you'll see this left shoulder go up right there. You'll see his left shoulder go up, and you'll see that chin point toward his shoulder. So that's what's going to happen when he does that. There it is, right there. Now, there are no scientific studies that show that means you're being deceptive. There are none. Because when I train law enforcement in the military, I have to tell them from the studies of what I know, so I don't give them some information that might get them killed because I feel like it's something that's important. There are no studies that show that. However, every time I've ever seen it, and a couple of FBI agents that I know have seen that, that's how we started talking about it, that has always been a deceptive cue. They've always been being deceptive. When you see that shoulder come up and the chin go toward the shoulder. So what this tells me here is he doesn't believe what he's saying there. He knows that's not true, or he knows it himself doesn't believe it to be true. So that's what we're seeing there. That's why that's really
That's what
important.
you see when you go.
Yeah, you get that thing. I don't know. I don't know where we're going.
All right, you're scary.
So.
All right, now things got a little heated, and here's an example of Senator Vance taking control of the situation. Show us this clip.
This is a masterful taking over the conversation. When the moderators try to stop him.
But thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
Pay attention to that. All right.
Tell us about that.
What he did here was masterful because he took over. As they're trying to shut him down, he sticks this up, which is called a regulator. Regulators are what you use when you're trying to control a situation. Slow something down, speed something up, you stay there, you come over this way, you all do this. Those are regulators because I'm trying to control what's going on. A lot of times when someone starts to, when you're trying to shut somebody down, you'll step up and go, wait. That makes the person, that ramps him up. He does his very slowly. He comes up like this and just sticks his hand up and starts speaking softly and then gets louder as he goes. Not a lot louder, but loud enough where they can hear him and they know there's no way out of it. And he keeps speaking. And so he took control of the conversation at that point and they were listening to him.
Okay, now the next one is China. Hong Kong, when he's talking about was he in Tiananmen Square or not.
Right.
And he said, were you there or were you not?
Right.
And what do you want to look for in that?
I'm going to look for the things that tell us we know he wasn't there. And this, I'll put all my money on this. We're going to see fear, we're going to see panic, we're going to see shame. And the grief muscle as well. So we'll throw, everything's in this one. Sorry.
All right, let's take a look and we'll listen.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the...
Yeah, as that head goes sideways, that's panic. because he's not sure how he's going to defend this. He knows the question's coming, so he's got something ready, but it's not coming out the way he thought about it. So he's got inner dialogue going on. He's thinking about it. That's why I see that head turn, those eyes get really, really wide. I know what that looks like. That's what's happening there.
Yeah, and you see the grief muscle again here.
Yes. Oh, yeah, the upside down horseshoe right there. And the rest of this is panic. We see his eyes doing this. That's panic. And this, yeah, I know. And these up here, usually we look at that and we say, well, that's disgust or whatever. But this is a panic mode. See how his head's coming forward and his chin is up like that? He's trying to get that out as fast as he can. And this is one of the only illustrations we see from him as he's talking. And this is the one that's come out further from his body than anything else, because he's trying to make sure I want you to believe me. You got to believe me. That's what we're seeing, the panic here in that. Wide eyes, grief muscle, and everything's far out.
Let's finish the clip here.
Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher.
You said.
Okay, I spent a lot of time, as I said, in the litigation arena, preparing witnesses. And we always prepared witnesses to tell the truth effectively. We never prepared them to lie or spin, just tell the truth effectively. And don't you agree that if someone asks you a question and you want to be persuasive, you should answer the question first and then explain it? Like, were you there last night? Yes. Let me tell you why. As opposed to, were you there last night? Well, wait a minute. Were you there or were you not? Don't you want to hear the answer up front? And the question was, you said you were in Tiananmen Square during that showdown, and were you or weren't you? Well, I was born in Nebraska in a town of 400, grew up on a farm, eating corn or whatever.
As you know, we call that chaff and redirect. He gives out a lot more information, hoping that your brain will follow that information and not ask any more questions and forget what you're talking about. That's why when you're asked a question, they go, well, listen, here's what really happened. When I get up in the morning, I eat toast every day. And they start talking about something that has nothing to do with what the answer is.
My point is, would it have been better off if he had said, no, I wasn't, and I said I was, let me explain. I took student groups over there probably 30 or 40 times 35 years ago. And I remember this being a really big deal, and I just got it confused timing-wise. Bad mistake on my part, I apologize. Next question. Would that have been a better response? But then we wouldn't have known where he was born.
That's true. That's true.
And we're back, and once again, I want to thank Easy Access for partnering with us tonight on our town hall. With the help of our friends at Grab TV, we posted a national poll asking which vice presidential candidate do you feel won tonight's debate. And before I put that up, let me ask you guys, if you think Governor Walz won this debate in terms of any criteria that you choose to embrace, whether you think he was just more likable, more relatable, had better content, whatever. Just you think if I had to pick a winner, I had to hit one button, either Walz or J.D. Vance. If you would say Governor Walz, raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you. If you would say no, I would have to say it was Senator Vance, raise your hand. Okay, that's most of the rest of you. Well, let's look at how our poll did. In our poll, wow, 91% say Senator J.D. Vance won, and 9% say Tim Walz won. That's pretty overwhelming, as it was with this group. Mm-hmm. You think that's because of just his communication skills and ability?
I'm 100%.
Composure?
Yes.
Clarity?
Yes.
On point?
Everything was there. Everything was tight, concise. He got the idea that was in his head. He could pull it out and put it right there, and you could see it. It was very clean. You can tell he's a big reader because his sentence structure is perfect as he's giving these answers that should be longer and really choppy. Sometimes I get kind of choppy because I start thinking up in my head too. His were clean. Everything was just tight and concise. Really good, really good.
Yeah, and most of y'all agreed. Now, let me ask you, how many of you think this is, as it's been talked about, one of the most important presidential elections we've had in a long time? If you think this one really matters more than most, raise your hand. Okay, that's most of you. All right, why? Why do you think this one's so important? Somebody tell me why you think that. Stand up in the middle. Here you go, say your name and go.
I'm Jonah, and I believe that this is one of the most important presidential elections because so many people have such polarizing views on this subject, mostly because of how Donald Trump has taken over the idea of politics and debating and made it so polarizing and making it so you're one side or the other. You have to agree with me on one sort of thing or the other. Honestly, I'm seeing that here tonight because so far all I've seen from you is a biased just depiction of Walz and Vance, pseudoscience, like body language thing, instead of talking about the real issues that were talked about tonight. I'm not hearing any of that from you tonight, and that's disappointing for me specifically, and I'm assuming from others here as well.
Yeah.
And
why don't you fix that by telling us what the biggest issues are that you think should be discussed?
I would say climate crisis is a big one. I would say immigration is a big one. We haven't talked about that at all. They did in the debate tonight, and I believe that while you say J.D. Vance might have been more confident about it, I believe that he is a lot more dangerous when it comes to immigration and stuff about this. And you want to talk about Walz refusing to answer questions properly, but J.D. Vance continuously denied any sort of, or he avoided the question of the militarization of his immigration policies and how dangerous those could be, separating families who have immigrants born here and then have a child who was born here legally, separating them. And I think that's very dangerous, especially leaving that up to the military and leaving instead of legislature, which the Biden administration has tried to do, but has been blocked by Trump's Supreme Court. I also believe that the ongoing genocide in Gaza and Lebanon and the Congo is very important, and we didn't talk about that. I assume that a good amount of people of your audience don't care about that, but
Well, that's kind of judgmental. You don't know who's in the audience, so why don't you lighten up on people you don't know?
I've been a big fan of your show for quite a long time, but over the last several years, I've seen that the more conservative side of the audience has definitely taken you've taken a liking to them, and that's why tonight is pretty biased. If you have to admit it's pretty biased. And
well, actually, I don't.
I would love to hear why.
I'm sure you would. I think that. You let the candidates talk about what they want to talk about, and they chose not to dive into the climate crisis, as you call it.
As I call it.
Yes.
You don't believe there's a climate crisis.
What, wasn't that your word?
You don't. Yes, there is a climate crisis, and I believe that Trump and Vance believe that is a hoax because they even asked him if he believes it if it was a hoax, and Vance ignored that question. Says, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that at all." He did say he didn't want to talk about it. Yes. He said that if you believe in all this stuff, but obviously he doesn't believe that.
Yeah. Okay, so you brought all of those things up now, so they have had a voice here tonight. Correct. So thank you for contributing that. All right, who else? What have we not talked about, or the candidates didn't talk about, that you would like to hear talked about? What do you need to hear from these guys that you haven't heard from? Yes, sir. Stand up. We'll get you a mic right quick.
Edgar?
Edgar, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree about something, maybe not everything, but definitely immigration. I think they could have talked a little bit more about it. The crisis that's going on in both south and north borders, what they're facing. And I don't know, I just wanted to hear more about it,
Yeah, and when we talk to people nationally, they say their number one concern and consideration is affordability. Being able to take care of their family and being secure in that. And the second thing they talk about, the thing that's number two on the list, is security. Do they feel safe and secure in their life and home? And border is part of that. So those are the two big things that they talk about. Way third down on the list, the third, fourth, and fifth things are a big step down from those two things. Is that true with you? What would be your third thing?
I think it just depends on, what group of people you're talking to. I'm from Los Angeles. There's a big cultural mix of people, and it's a very important subject that we want to discuss. We want to know more. Maybe not in other states, but I can only talk for myself.
Yeah. Okay. Take a mic to the far end down here. Hang on. Take a mic to the far end.
I was curious on what the gentleman's thoughts were on the border as far as reinforcing it, or you were talking about how families are being separated, and what was your thought on that, on how to fix that situation?
Well, I believe that situation should be figured out diplomatically.
Can we get a mic to this gentleman up here?
I believe that situation should be dealt with diplomatically through legislature, not through military intervention, because especially putting it up to the states, our state for one, Governor Abbott, is clearly very anti-immigrant, illegal or legal, and making it harder for people to get legal citizenship only causes more people to come in illegally. And there has been pretty detailed instructions from the Biden administration trying to fix this problem, but it has been vetoed at the Supreme Court level because of Trump's administration. He put those people in power to veto democratic and more progressive options but instead he's just trying to say, okay, we'll have the military do mass deportations. And when you do stuff like that, historically speaking, that is dangerous for
Do you probably feel like possibly that it's for their own protection as well? Not just ours, but for theirs as well.
How so?
So a lot of times when they come over here and they're illegal, when he said that a lot of people aren't being mules, he did make that comment. It's not so common anymore. It actually is, and he wouldn't know because they're crossing illegally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So he was incorrect, and most people that would say that are incorrect because we don't know, right?
Sure.
And a lot of times, it's not only sex trafficking. These kids are within my community, and I am Hispanic, there's a lot of organs being sold. There's a lot of children being sold to get impregnated and then using the stem cells. There's all kinds of situations going on, and it's not being
No, and I know there is
popular.
definitely people.
But what I'm saying is that our military, which I am a vet, and that just says that we do have duties to do a lot of times,
Sure.
and a lot of times we do question it, but we know that there's a lot of thought put into some of those situations, right? So by us enforcing our wall and keeping them away, we're actually saving them. We're actually helping them, and we're helping ourselves as well, because I'll tell you what, majority of the people that are crossing over, it's not for good reasons. Majority.
I would highly disagree with that, but sure.
And that's fine.
The
I
people
have
who
family that
want
work on the border, and I go to Mexico enough to
said
know
anything. What are you
that these are facts.
I got pictures on my phone where there's people.
Can you get the mic from the gentleman in front of you? Say your name.
I got pictures on my phone
What's your name?
with Pablo,
Paulo?
with people in Eagle Pass when we crossed over. People from one side of the train all the way to the top, they stop, they run out. I got a picture of a lady carrying a baby underneath the rail car.
I've seen multiple things
Yes.
like that all over the place.
That's not on the news. That's what me and my wife have seen when we were in Eagle Pass.
I didn't
so
know.
you're actually saving them. One of my cousins, he found an arm where he was underneath the rail car. He checks the rail cars. There was an arm under there where somebody fell off.
Yeah.
My dad lives in Mexico. We fed an immigrant there.
Push the mic up a little bit.
Oh, we fed an immigrant over there because my dad lives in Mexico. We fed him, and he lost his wife 3 days ago on the train, or at that time. This was right before Christmas. So when you're over there and you see that, it's bad. It's bad. You can't. It's rough if you see.
Correct.
In eyes.
Sure.
A lot of times people speak on this because what they see on what they're reading here and there. But if you're actually there in Mexico and you notice that there's a bunch of police officers, there's trailers with humans in it, and the driver will actually leave because he got scared or whatever the case may be, there's dead bodies in there after a couple of days. Children, women, and why? Well, because they did it the wrong way. And so it's for their own safety. Now, if we were to enforce this wall, right, we could cut out all kinds of problems, not even helping themselves, but helping ourselves as far as the country goes. You know, because we're paying for this, and that. Now we got to worry about our children. Now we got to worry about drugs. You know, that fentanyl thing, it's a big thing, and it's coming from over there. I lost my brother last year, and he was young, 25 years old. And of course, we make decisions, right? You know, everybody makes their own decisions. But if we could prevent a lot of these things from happening, why not?
I agree with that. I'm not trying, I was not at any point trying to say that I believe in a fully open border. Theoretically, absolutely I would, because it's ridiculous that we would consider any human illegal.
And that's where the military comes in.
I don't think leaving it up to the military is a very good idea.
Have you been to the border?
I've been to El Paso quite a bit. I haven't been to the border or to Mexico myself, but I've spent quite a lot of time in El Paso.
I hope you
on the
took what you
border.
learned today, wherever you go, and maybe you can enlighten someone else.
What's that?
I hope what you took today,
what
you learned today.
Sure, no.
You can enlighten other people that there's different views, and the view from over there is a lot more intense.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think that it should be a fully open border. I think there should be regulations to it, and I think that there should also be a lot better ways for people to be able to frequently come here legally instead of having to wait. What's that?
I was thinking the same thing.
There is, absolutely.
I went through the process and I did everything. I went through the legal process.
That's great. I'm glad.
Therefore, there is a way to come here legally.
There is,
and
yes.
do things legally. So there's no reason why they should be doing that and why the Biden administration should be allowing that to happen.
Well, they're not allowing it to happen
They are allowing
any
it.
more than any other would.
They are allowing it. It doesn't matter that the Democrats sit there and gaslight us every single time, and some people are foolish enough to believe it. There are legal and there are ways to do things legally and right in this country if you want to.
Yes.
If you want to. I came here and I did it the legal way, the right way. There's a way.
Then you know how hard it is.
It's hard,
How
but
long-
I'm not carrying my kids across the border.
My mom spent 5 years trying to get her green card. She's been here for 50 years. She had to renew her green card. She couldn't go back to Mexico for 5 years. She couldn't visit her family because if she did, she wouldn't have been able to come back because it's so hard. It takes so long for people to be able to do that.
Possible.
It
It's
is.
possible.
It absolutely
It's
is.
possible.
But it takes
Everybody
a
doesn't
long
have
time.
everything handed to them.
Not
I'm
everybody
sorry.
has
I'm
the
sorry.
time.
Everybody doesn't have
Not
everything
everybody
handed
has
to
the
them.
time to be able to do something like that.
I served in the military to get my citizenship. Did she do that?
My
Did
mother
she do
came when
that?
she was 4
Did
years
the person
old.
who went back to Mexico and needed that, did they do that? Because they handed that citizenship to me because of my service.
Why would you put your children and yourself in that situation where there's an opportunity where y'all going to get separated? Why would you do that? That's your responsibility when you're in that situation.
There are consequences for breaking the law.
Okay, what else? Anything that didn't come up that you wish they would? Because listen, they'll be watching this. Yes, ma'am. Just hand her that mic if you would.
I would have liked to hear some things about equality. I don't think we're talking enough about the problems that we have created in our country over race, LGBTQ issues, intersectionality, where those things kind of cross into each other. Because we've been so polarized, I think we're having a hard time coming together again. And I think we see that in Congress. I really want to see someone bring people together and solve problems, at least after the election's over. And I'm worried about our future of our country because I don't think we know how to do that anymore.
Well, I will weigh in on something that I haven't weighed in on so far. And that is, I don't think we're nearly as polarized as the media would make us believe we are. Anytime I sit down to talk to or negotiate with someone or teach negotiation, one of the first things that I always do is say, let's focus on what we agree on first. We have time for our differences, but let's talk about what we agree on first. And I think the media, because it sells if you have conflict, it sells if you have people making sparks, it sells if you have people throwing out sound bites that are easily repeatable. It doesn't sell so much if you conduct yourself like these two candidates did tonight. I think they were civil to each other. They disagreed on some things, but they said, hey, I agree with this. I agree with that. And so I felt like it was good to see that, and I hope that's an example. And maybe we'll kind of take that as a cue, because I don't think we're near as divided as the media would like us to believe. We are out of time. I want to thank everyone joining us tonight, and a special thanks to Scott Rouse. Thank you for being here from Behavior Panel for his expert analysis, as well as GrabTB for their help with the national poll we showed during tonight's town hall. And to see that, you can just go to our website, drphil.com or meritstreetmedia.com. Also want to thank our partner, Easy Access. They're an incredible American-made company that has made and installed more than 250,000 ramps for veterans nationwide. We'll see you next time. Good night.